So have you ever been manufacturing burgers for well-known supermarkets and you accidentally, it can happen, especially when you don't know and you're always thinking about who the greatest superhero of all time is, you accidentally mix up the beef with horse meat.
It happens.
It happens, and then there's national outrage, there's scandal, and it's all because you didn't know who the greatest superhero of all time was.
Well, we are going to try and avoid that happening again and try to figure out who the greatest superhero of all time is.
So we are back and we're trying to find the greatest superhero of all time. We're going to kick right off. We have Superman versus Dick Grayson. Dale's going to talk a bit about Superman. I'm going to talk a bit about Dick Grayson. Off you go.
Yes, I am. Superman, Clark Kent, the man that needs no introduction whatsoever.
All right, good. My turn.
No, we all know the famous red and blue trunks of Superman. A character that has been influential in everything that this show's about. You know, he was the original superhero and he has had some fantastic evolutions in his time. He's been the last son of Krypton. He was the first major superhero to die and be brought back again. He is just so influential in not only the DC universe, but the comic book universe overall. But I mean, I think everyone would say that Superman is one of the greatest superheroes of all time, along with him being one of the most recognizable faces of all time. You can go anywhere and show them a picture of Superman, especially the S and the shield, and they will know instantly that that is Superman.
Is that a good quality in of itself? Like I could show anyone a picture of Hitler and...
No, but I think it just goes to show you the impact that Superman has had on the world as a superhero, and you know everything he stands for: truth, justice, and the American way. It's something that's continued throughout his character. He's always stood for those things, and he does kind of represent all that could be good in a person. And, you know, even in his early days, he didn't always fight the supervillains, and, you know, he doesn't have the strongest rogues gallery of all time. I mean, his most notable are Lex Luthor and Darkseid, but when he first started out, he fought for the common man. He fought for the guy being bent over by the banks and the rest of it, and he took on corporate crime rather than actual crime. You know, he left Batman to do that, and he took on corporate crime. Superman is without a doubt one of the greatest superheroes of all time.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Dick Grayson, I will go on to argue, is also one of the greatest superheroes of all time, and it even feels weird to call Dick Grayson a superhero. He feels more real and more human than that to me. Quick disclaimer, most of the books I'm buying now are Marvel, but Dick Grayson represents completely wholly the beautiful and elegant past that their heroes seem to have, as opposed to the crazy Marvel continuities. Dick Grayson's evolution as a character and as a person are so poetic and so... It almost seems like it was planned from the beginning. This kid who originally just started off in Detective Comics way back when as this introduction for the kids to kind of get behind. Oh, it's Robin, like we can relate to him where we can't relate to other people. But also, we've gone on to have a father and son bond. We had it with Dick, we didn't just have it with Damian, and that moment in Dick's life where he decided to go out on his own. We've all had that. We've all had that moment of separation from our parents and our families where we said, no, this is enough, and I'm gonna live for myself, and I want to do. I don't want your handouts anymore. I don't want to live in your shadow. I want to be my own person. And we've gotten that with Dick Grayson. And then again, I call it poetic because then he goes back. We get Dick Grayson as Batman, in recent times, and that's so beautiful to me. The fact that he goes back and fills his surrogate dad almost his shoes and does such a good job. And we've seen Bruce raise him so well. And to raise him as a leader the fact that Robin, the sidekick, is now a leader and has been raised as a leader and has gone through that evolution, I think is just stunning. Dick Grayson is and will always be one of my favorite characters. I loved him in the Teen Titans. I loved Nightwing. Love Nightwing. I loved his Batman. I have loved every single iteration of that character. The way Scott Snyder wrote him was incredible and moving, and I think you could see where I'm going with this.
I think I can.
I really, really believe, and on the basis that, on a couple of levels, I think a lot of your arguments for Superman were arguments that we've already given, and arguments that we said he couldn't get through on again.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I do believe he will not get through on the basis of he is Superman. But I also, something that you said before is that, you know, that struck a chord for me is that Robin didn't want to be in the shadow of Batman anymore. You know, Dick didn't want to be in the shadow of Batman. He isn't in the shadow of Batman. Well, he is, but he's also in the shadow of Superman. And every superhero there has ever been is in the shadow of Superman. And not just because he was the first superhero, but because he is the perfect superhero. I mean, and everything that Superman stands for as a character and everything that he embodies, he's this... I mean, I heard somewhere that the name Kal-El roughly translates, it's very similar to two Jewish words that mean messenger of God. You know, he is this Moses figure. He is the bringer of a new era, almost Christ-like. And there's something so pure about Superman, and there always has been. There's something to be said for, I realise that he hasn't had... Although he has had losses in his life and gains. He lost his entire city of Krypton.
Yeah, but they're not the best things about Superman. The best things about Superman are his idea, and in an abstract sense, like it's an overarching thing. Whereas the best things about Dick are in a really deep and human sense and a relatable sense, like on that level. And I suppose it comes down to what you prefer in yourself. And I think everyone will have an opinion on this, but for me, I would pick up a book with Dick Grayson in it any day of the week just because of, I just think one of the perfect superhero evolutions that I think we've ever seen, and probably that we'll likely ever see.
I do agree with you there, but I've got to say, like, Superman has evolved as a character. You know, he started off as the clean-cut Mr. America, and then, you know, you get up to Action Comics 900 a couple of years ago, where America's saying to him, you know, you can't be doing these things because you represent us as a country. And he's like, well, no, I don't. I represent something bigger than one country. I represent the world. And you also get these really tender moments with Superman. I mean, I believe the story is called The War on New Krypton, where he manages to save the planet of Krypton, and General Zod is left in charge because he's turned over a new leaf. And he comes back to find that his world has been turned into an army, and he has to decide, is he going to stay with them, or is he going to let them destroy Earth, the planet that he's called home for the last however long of his life? Or does he fight his own people? And it's this real inner struggle of, you know, what does he do? He's an incredibly in-depth character, and not given as much credit as he should be for his personality as a character, both as Superman and Clark Kent.
Do you honestly think that he's as interesting a character as Dick, and do you honestly think that he's had as good of an evolution as Dick has?
I don't know if he's had maybe such an obvious evolution, because he's always been, you know, unlike Dick Grayson, we've always seen Superman as an adult. You know, we've got the Smallville on the TV show, and we've seen him grow up on the telly, but as far as the comic books goes, he's always been an adult. And so you haven't seen not only a physical evolution, but a kind of, you know, a mental evolution, because he's always, you know, his ideals have stayed the same, but the things that he's put through have changed him as a person. Whereas Dick Grayson, you get a very obvious evolution of a character. You see him grow physically, emotionally, mentally, and you don't get all that with Superman because he started off as an adult. But I also don't think he should be put down because of that. And I feel as though a lot of people would. I feel as though a lot of people think that he's not as good because he hasn't grown up in the same way.
Well, I think they're all very interesting points. I really am sticking with Dick. So if you are not moving,
Gonna have to stick with Superman.
we're gonna have to throw it out there. Then we literally can't decide, and I think it's good that we had that conversation because I'm completely truthful on this. I do think Dick's the better character, and I stand by all my reasons. So it's up to you.
Yep.
It's in your hands, Dick or Superman. Leave a comment below.
Yeah.
And based on your decision, we'll see who goes through.
Okay, so next pairing we have is The Punisher.
Yeah.
Okay, Frank Castle versus Tim Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah, another Robin.
Yeah, I'm all defending the Robins today.
Always defending the Robins. But I will go first again with The Punisher. Punisher debuted in the pages of The Amazing Spider-Man as a villain and then went on to star in his own series as the hero, or maybe more the anti-hero, because unlike a lot of other superheroes, and unlike Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, all of those, the main big guys, he will kill people. He will quite happily kill people as his way of getting
Wolverine?
vengeance served. Well, you know, there are the exceptions like Wolverine and Dredd. Dredd, yeah. You know, those are a couple of the exceptions, but
Jason Todd.
Well, yeah, Jason Todd will kill as well. But yeah, so the Punisher will kill people. And he hasn't got the sense of morality that like Batman has, where if you put them away enough times, they will reform and it'll all be fine. No, he doesn't believe in that. He believes that people are inherently evil and therefore must be killed and gotten rid of. I mean, and you can understand that from his origins, you know. His family were brutally murdered, and he seeks vengeance for that every day of his life. He wasn't really treated with quite the same level of respect that he is now back in the early days because, you know, they were a bit coy with violence back then. They didn't want to show too much. So it was only when he got moved over to Max Comics and Warren Ellis got a hold of him that his character really shined through. And I mean, he is such a dynamic character. His interaction with the rest of the Marvel Universe, I mean, it's my favorite part of the Civil War is when the Punisher gets involved and how no one wants to work with him because as far as the superheroes are concerned, he's a villain. He's a bad guy. And I think there's really something to be said for this character who takes the law into his own hands to a permanent degree, unlike the rest of them, and he doesn't understand the point of letting these villains get away with what they get away with.
Yeah, Tim Wayne, on the face of it, would seem very similar to Dick Grayson, but what is genius about all of the Robins, all four of them, or five of them, is that they're all so different. Yeah, I mean, we start off with the Boy Wonder, like they always start off in that kind of pure place. But the difference between Tim and Dick is that when Tim grows up, he doesn't leave of his own choice. He gets pushed out. So we get these two dichotomies of the parent and the child. On the one hand, we get the child outgrowing the parent and moving away. On the other hand, we get the vision of the child growing up, not completing his growing up, and being pushed out. And again, DC doing these really elegant backstories whereby that feature of Tim Wayne informs his character throughout. What we see now in Tim Wayne is a character that, unlike Dick, who has moved firmly into adulthood, Tim is kind of caught somewhere in between. He was a character that was asked to grow up really before he was ready to. So we get this weird dichotomy with Dick where we don't quite know who he is. He's trying to be older. He's trying to be like Dick because Dick in many ways is kind of his idol. He looks up to him. But at the same time, he's still a member of the Titans. He still feels quite young. He still makes a lot of mistakes unlike Dick, we don't feel really that he could ever step into Batman's shoes. And I think that is what's really interesting, and that is what makes me, again, emotionally attached to Tim. And one of the things I heard recently, just as a really brief aside, is that they really messed up his origin story. If you read the 0 issue of Teen Titans, that's not what his origin story is anymore, and it's horrible, so I'm choosing to ignore that. Which you're completely welcome to do in comics. So
that's very true. You can ignore continuity if you want. Wolverine Origins never happened.
Yeah. So okay, so that's what we're between then. We're between, again, a very similar thing. We're between the Punisher, who really has this abstract sensibility about him. He'll kill, he'll break the leg.
You say abstract, but the Punisher is a man
it's based on ideas.
There is no grey area with the Punisher. It is black and white. You are good or you are bad, and if you are bad...
my point is that the premise of the Punisher is based on ideas. It's based on the idea that you don't kill, blah, blah, blah. You have this sensibility about criminals, whereas what's good about Tim is the way you can emotionally relate to him, the character, the way you can think, oh, Tim, and oh no, and you can feel that kind of pang.
See, I feel as though you can emotionally relate to the Punisher. I feel as though he's one of the very few characters where, you know, it gets to a point in Batman where he's beaten up the Joker so many times that you just think to yourself, just kill him.
Jason Todd says that.
Just kill him. And, you know, you get Batman's, it'd be too easy to do that. But then you see a guy like the Punisher, and the Punisher would not have put up with the Joker's shit for a minute. He'd have been like, you can just punished instantly. And, you know, there's something to be said, like the Punisher really brought in the era of, or was instrumental in bringing in the era of the adult comic. He was by no means the pioneer, but I know a lot of the adult audience, and when I was growing up, like my brothers reading comics, they read Ghost Rider and the Punisher. Those were the two big ones, and the Punisher more so because he's just he's just one of those characters that stands out as completely different. He's an outsider to the superhero community, but is a hero in his own right, and I think...
Well, here's what I'll say. Unlike with Dick, where I genuinely think that Dick Grayson is the better character, here I prefer Tim Wayne, but I am aware that I think a lot of people will cite the Punisher as the better, more interesting. I feel like I might have a personal attachment more than him being. I feel
so, and I've got to say, my thing with Tim Wayne, because you know how much I was instrumental in getting him through in the last round, but there is a reason he's always kind of stayed in the sidekick Teen Titans team role.
Well. But I think that's what makes him interesting. But okay, we'll send the Punisher through. That is another episode of Who Wins.
I won one! Yes!
That is another long episode of Who Wins. We hope you'll join us next week and join us on Friday, where we will be talking about some big issues.
We'll see you then.